I'm your host, Sheldon Alexander, and we are fully into playoff mode. The Stanley Cup playoffs are underway. The NBA second round is into high gear, and the record against the spread on the pod still chugging along. Let's keep things moving, though. The other two series are obviously both tied at 1, and these series have been, it's going to be pretty interesting because I still don't really know from a series standpoint where either one is going. So the game to game, we'll start with the Bucks and Celtics, or do you want to start with the Grizzlies and Warriors? I'll dealer's choice. I'll give you the option here, which way you want to go.
It kind of feels like they're the same thing in a weird way, right? Where we all just anointed the Warriors and the Bucks for winning road games in game 1. And then it was like, yeah, the home team is going to get one of these first 2 games. And it's funny, you mentioned the record at the start of the pod, and 3-1 in that previous podcast. But you and I differed on a couple, but we still got to 3-1 individually, right? Yeah, we were 1-1 on games that we split.
I got the Memphis game wrong. Yeah, the Memphis game wrong.
And I was foolishly into the Sixers, even though I really enjoyed where I was at halftime in that game. But what else is new with being in a decent spot at halftime in a Sixers game? So I'll talk Boston, Milwaukee here. I don't have a ton for this, right? Smart goes out in game 2. The line starts to drop from 5, got down to you could get a -4 at even money. And then does that matter? No. Where have we heard this before, right? Like a key player goes out, and it's funny when a line moves like that and it moves by like a point, like that should be the indicator. If it's only going to move, if a guy's out and it's only going to move by a point, then how much does it matter in a single game situation? As it is, right? Like that's the hint, folks. That's the thing that's telling you, like Marcus Smart over the course of a series, all of that sort of thing, like that's going to matter. But when we're talking about desperate times call for desperate measures here, like it wasn't going to change much. So whether you grab the -5 that we talked about on Monday, or whether you were able to get a -4, didn't matter. Game was never close. By the way, the under hits again that we talk about, Celtics unders, like these things are not even remotely close after going 2-2 against the Nets. I don't know what it was. Again, we talked about it. The referees making all kinds of foul calls in that Nets Celtics series to get a couple of those games over. But that was 2-2 to the in the over under in that series. Now we're 2-0 in the under in this series, and it's still creeping down. We're down to 213. We went from 215.5, 214.5 down to 213. Probably having to play the under again here, right? But as far as the game is concerned, by the way, these games are happening on Saturday because apparently the NBA saw a little drama with this series, and we're just like, I don't know what it is, what holiday they're observing or whatever. But
you know what it really is? It's money. It's money. TNT
well, it always
paid a lot of money for no. TNT paid a lot of money for hockey, so they have hockey on tonight on TNT
Thursday night. Okay,
so they cleared out their sched to move the games. Yeah, it's always
what a time to be alive.
Always follow the money. Always follow the money.
Oh, but I mean, the answer to all your questions is money. That's Boston. I didn't think hockey was the money in this case. Hockey's never the money.
Well, it's TNT. It's just whatever TNT wants.
No,
right?
for
They're
sure, of course.
So, but yeah, I mean, the other part of this is Jaylen Brown. After a terrible game 1, he comes back, drops 30. The whole narrative, he was at the gym early, shooting around, getting shots up. But as mentioned, we have a series. We're going to Milwaukee. It's -3 on Saturday. I'm going to be on the Bucks. And the reason I'm going to be on the Bucks is because it's a short number. And here's some stats for you. I know you like your numbers. Try to add some stuff in here, but because I had trouble trying to figure out where I was going in this series because it was 2 blowout games, right? But here's the thing. What if I told you that in this series so far, Boston in both games has shot more 3s than 2s? So all season long, twice the Boston Celtics shot more 3s than 2s. They've done it twice in 2 games in this series. So they've shot 93 3s and 71 2s in this series, right? So obviously the 3s didn't go in game 1 and they did go in game 2. So I say all that to say, what am I trusting more in the playoffs? What is more sustainable? And that's Milwaukee, who also wants to shoot 3s, but they only shot 18. They went 3 of 18 in game 2, right? But they take it to the cup. That's more sustainable to me, especially in a playoff series where you're talking about refs calling fouls and unders and ugly basketball. The sustainable play is more so taking it to the paint, playing inside, Giannis playing bully ball, all that fun stuff, instead of relying on like Grant Williams to splash in 3s again. So What will happen in the series? I don't know. But in terms of a game to game thing and the series moving from Boston to Milwaukee, I'm going to be on the Bucks and think that the Celtics aren't going to shoot a franchise playoff record 23s again as they did in game 2. Right. And I'm going to be on the Bucks -3. That's just where I'm at. Interested to see how the series plays out. Because again, if you ask me right now, who's going to win this series? I still don't know. I'm still leaning on the Bucks, but here we are, -3 Bucks on Saturday. I'm on that. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, there's some -2.5s even out there. And I hopped on that a couple of days in advance here. I hopped on that last night. I think you probably still get that in faraway places, so to speak. But as far as listen, you talked about the games 1 and games 2. That just, whether it's chicken and the egg again here, right? Like that's shot quality, right? That's the shot quality stat that we quote all the time. And it was like, first game, shot quality was fairly even. Celtics missed all of their shots. It's why they got blown out, right? Like they should have, on an average day, made more of those shots, and that game should have been closer. I think the Bucks were supposed to win that game by 3 or 4 points instead of the, 11 points that they did. But the shot quality was virtually the same in the next game. And that's the thing that you and I talk about as far as predictive metrics. Can we rely on the shot quality to be the same game to game? And then can we rely on sort of an average level performance? Now, the crazy thing in the series is that like the Celtics were way above average in game 2, right? So like if they could find their level here from a water finding level average standpoint, like, okay, we might have a closer game here because the shot quality is indicating that these games should be a lot closer. It's really just a matter of the high variance style of play that the Celtics are playing, i.e. taking a lot of 3-pointers, which you so eloquently described. And so I look at it and I go, okay, well, what is more likely to happen on the road? You mentioned it, the Grant Williamses, I'll throw out the Peyton Pritchards of the world, right? Like, we always talk about the supporting cast on the road. I'm always going to bet against the supporting cast. When you win games on the road, it's because your dominant player was a dominant player and probably was the big time key to you winning the game, i.e. Giannis in game 1. I'm not there yet, even with Jason Tatum, so that, thinking that he can win this game by himself when Giannis is on the other side, right? It's a different story when you are playing not the defending champion, not the quote unquote defending MVP. So I look at that number at -2.5, even -3 going like, that still feels a little short. Now, the series price, I think, is interesting to me and worth mentioning because, you look at this game and Milwaukee's favored and they have home court advantage, quote unquote, but they're still the underdog in this series at not much, but like +105. And you can say like, yeah, but they have home court. They've wrestled home court away from Boston. Like, shouldn't we be hopping all over that? Now, the difference between home court before game 1 is you have to win the 4 out of 7 games on your home court. Problem here for the Bucks is if they're going to take advantage of the home court advantage, they have to win 3 out of 4, right? So instead of the 4 out of 7, it's now a 75% win rate over the course of these next 4 games, which is why it's not the same thing, right? Home court advantage, you want it over a longer term or even in the smallest of terms, right? You want game 7 at home. So the Celtics know they just need to steal, quote unquote, one of these games in Milwaukee. Now, does that necessarily happen in game 3? I think you and I are in agreement, if we had to, which we are, like, again, I've already said it, I've bet it. I don't think so. I think Milwaukee wins this game. I think they cover the spread, but that's just, worth mentioning as far as the series price is concerned. You're not necessarily getting the deal you might think you are on a plus price with Milwaukee, given what's asked of them to sort of, make home court advantage an actual thing to take advantage of.
Yeah, it's actually a thing too by design from Coach Bud's brain, I guess, so to speak. Like their defense is designed to protect the paint and, force you into shooting threes. Yeah. Now, if you want to make the threes, cool. Merry Christmas to you. There's nothing, as mentioned, nothing you can do when you're shooting and hitting 20 threes in a game. But can you do that over the course of 7 games? Can those guys do that on the road? Game 3, I'm going to bet no.